Welcome back to Politics Tonight. Thank you so much for staying with us. Dr. Epelle has been speaking with us tonight on the coming governorship elections in Bayelsa, Imo and Kogi states, and the push for electoral integrity. He's a policy development and advocacy expert. He's also the founder and CEO of TAF Africa. Dr. Jake, thank you for staying with us. Now let's talk about another major challenge facing our electoral process, which is voter turnout. And we know how critical this is for election credibility and integrity. This has become so low in our elections. What are your expectations this time? Dr. Epelle, did you get my question?
Yeah, you're talking about voter turnout, right?
Absolutely.
Well, in every electoral process, voter party cannot be ruled out. You know, whether it's in America or in the UK, there's always a case of voter apathy. And oftentimes, it's as a result of lack better when the process lacks adequate preparation, or when people feel aggrieved that their expectations are not carried out in the process. But my clarion call to Nigerians is simply that we cannot ignore the process. You cannot refuse to carry out your right, to vote, just because you're not too comfortable with one thing or the other. We cannot leave the opportunities for people, the very people that we say, look, we need to make sure that they don't hold on to power. So it's important that everyone should participate in this forthcoming off-cycle election. It is absolutely necessary, that we take part in the process and correct the very things that we are complaining about. I've always said that there's a saying that you don't necessarily complain about what you permit. I think that's the right phrase. You don't complain about what you permit. So for those people, including myself, who are not too comfortable with the process and all that, election can be an opportunity to correct and bring in the right people that we want to lead us. If we abandon it, the wrong people will take the mantle of leadership.
Yeah, but what do you think, Dr. Epelle, what do you think can be done to get more voters out on election day?
Voter education, voter education, voter education. The critical people that, for instance, my community, that have not really been carried along. We have made effort to go on TV, to ensure that we sensitize them, to let them know that, I'm so sorry. Someone just walked in. Yeah. To make them know that, it is their right. It is their right to vote. Not only to vote, it's also their right to be voted for. So we will continue to do that. So voter education is very, very important. Strategic voter education is most important. And thank God for institutions like yours and several other media houses that are giving this election adequate coverage, adequate publicity. That needs to happen. My organization had spoken to INEC, and we've reached out to them. We do have a national radio program that we have told INEC to give us whatever publicity material, whether it's in disability, security, election management. We will run it on our shows at no cost at all to INEC. You know, so it requires all hands on deck, all hands on deck. And I also want to use this opportunity. You know, your station have always stood for democracy. You know, I think you also need to help in any way we can, because we don't allow this lethargic spirit to grab our democratic process, and then we go back in time. We shouldn't, you know. So voter education is important, you know. Training of the electoral those who are going to manage the elections are very, very, very important. The security training of security personnel is also very important. You know, education of the process is absolutely important. You know, if we do all of this and continue to sensitize the people, we can nip the issue of voter apathy in the board.
All right. So another major challenge, Dr. Epelle, is vote buying. How can this be checked?
Well, vote buying happens when, number one, we have corrupt politicians. Number two, you have also corrupt citizens, you know, because it's not only the politicians who are offering the money to buy their votes. There's also the corporation of those who are selling the votes, you know. So these two individuals must come to the knowledge that what they are doing is undermining democracy, but also punitive measure. If there are those, you know, I haven't seen many people who have been caught in the act that have faced, you know, the punishment of what they've done. So I think also the judiciary and the judicial process, if we have many of them that are caught in the act and disciplined and sometimes sent to jail, it will become a deterrent to those who wants to do it. But it is appalling and it is condemnable, those who get involved in vote buying. When you sell your vote, you have sold your power. When you sell your vote, you have sold your future. When you offer to buy an individual vote, you're simply telling us that you don't have the qualities to lead. It's pure and simple.
So people living with disabilities still have challenges with our elections. For you, what more does INEC needs to do in this regard?
Well, this has been a very burning issue, Jumoke. One, INEC chairman.
Dr. Epelle. Dr. Jake Epelle, can you hear me?
In terms of policy, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. In terms of policy, in terms of framework, in terms of materials, they remain the most inclusive institution. Where the rubber meets the road is what happens in the field. What happens during the election proper. Everything is done pre-election. Thank God these days they even have the data. Everything is done pre-election. The problem is what happens during election. The deployment of assistive material, the deployment of braille, the deployment of large print posters, the deployment of magnifying glasses. Most times you will go to the polling unit and you don't see those material. And sometimes when you see them, those who are who are supposed to administer the usage don't know what to do. So training of staff, the electoral staff, is very, very important, and of course, continuous sensitization of persons with disability to know what to do. For instance, we know there's priority voting, but not too many of them know that, and we must continue to sensitize them. I want to use this opportunity, and I always like to take advantage of opportunities like this. Your station has been partnering with us, and I want to ask that we continue this partnership to sensitize persons with disability to get involved in the electoral process. I think also it's important because, the president needs to also show us and give us that sense of belonging by making appointments of persons with disability either in the cabinet or in very sensitive position that would showcase them as role models. These are some of the things that will help in making sure that we have a truly inclusive electoral either process or outcome.
All right, so, you mentioned punishment as one of the punitive measures to curbing vote buying in Nigeria. But why do you think the establishment of Electoral Offences Commission has been an issue for the past 13 years thereabout?
Because corrupt politicians knows that will be their waterloo. They know that such organization, such institution will easily track them and send them to jail if we have the right people, And so I have no idea why that institution cannot see the light of the day. So there's a deliberate attempt by corrupt politicians, by those who don't want to see a true democratic dividend. They don't want to see that they are that punitive organ that can hold them accountable and responsible for the things that they do. And we will keep pushing. There is strong advocacy to keep pushing for that institution to see the light of the day, and we'll keep doing that until it's done.
All right. So as we round off tonight, what more reforms do you think should be done to make elections in Nigeria more credible?
First of all, and that there's been a lot of reforms and no implementation. Well, some of those reforms are moribund. Some of them are very cogent. They are very up to date. But we need to further interrogate the process, taking into consideration some of the things that we have seen today, this year, that we never saw 2 years ago, 1 year ago, And so, one, I think a lot more needs to be done around INEC. INEC needs to be unbundled. I think it's too big and just too big for the kind of responsibility that is given. I think also there's a need for the law, all the electoral laws that we know are not favorable to delivering good democratic governance. Those laws to be repealed and replaced with laws that we know will enhance democratic value. I also want to say that political parties have a role to play here in the reforms, both their internal democracy and inclusion of women, youth, persons with disability. We are pushing for electoral reforms, and the good thing about our advocacy is that inclusion is at the center stage of the reforms that we're pushing. I am one of those who believe that there has to be a reform process. Yeah.
Right. Dr. Jake Epelle, policy development and advocacy expert and founder, CEO of TAF Africa. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, despite how busy it looks for you. Thank you so much for your perspective on the show
thank
tonight.
You so much. My apologies.
Conversation with you.